we are continuing to follow the fatal shooting involving an ICE officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota that happened on Wednesday. We're going to break down the latest regarding this investigation and what comes next, specifically because it does involve a federal agent. So to do that, we're going to be joined by Lance Lorusso. He is an attorney. But first, Asher Red is joining us live from down in Minneapolis with a full breakdown of what we know so far. Asher.
Well, Carol, the Department of Homeland Security is defending this ICE agent, saying that he was acting in self-defense, but the governor and the city's mayor aren't buying that story. So immigration agents were conducting targeted operations in South Minneapolis yesterday afternoon when 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good appeared to block them in with her car. When agents told Good to get out of the car, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says she tried to run them over, and that's when one of the ICE agents shot and killed Good through the windshield. Secretary Noem is calling Good a domestic terrorist and accusing her of using her car as a weapon.
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons. This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism.
But some city officials are calling this murder, saying the ICE agent should be arrested and charged. Within hours of the shooting, hundreds of anti-ICE protesters showed up at the scene, many of them throwing snow and chunks of ice at law enforcement. Mayor Jacob Fry is calling the Trump administration's narrative BS, and he didn't use the acronym.
Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bull. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here.
This is just devastating for the community. We can't have people getting murdered in our streets. It's just not right.
And this shooting comes on the heels just days after DHS deployed about 2,000 additional officers to the Minneapolis area. And local and state officials are encouraging people who want to protest to do so peacefully, but the Guard is on standby as a precaution. Carol?
And then, Asher, I did want to ask you before we bring on our attorney Lance to join us here. I do understand that some of these ramming attacks against DHS officers has actually been on the rise. What do you know about that?
Well, Secretary Noem says that just in recent weeks, we've seen about 100 ramming attacks, people using their vehicles against ICE agents or the ICE vehicles. She says just yesterday alone, across the whole country, there were 4 ramming attacks, 3 of them right here in Minneapolis.
All right, Asher Red joining us live from down there in the scene in Minneapolis. We certainly appreciate your time. Take care, and we'll check in soon. I do want to transition now, though, to Lance, who is joining us live as an attorney. And you are following this case very closely, Lance. You heard a little bit there, some of the updates that we've gotten. But when you look at this entire situation, I mean, what do you make of it in terms of what we need going forward with evidence?
Well, the first thing that struck me was the statement by Senator Schumer that we need a quick and thorough investigation. You can't have a quick and thorough investigation. Those are two diametrically opposed concepts. There will be an investigation. There is a tremendous amount of evidence that's in this scene. There's a black box in the vehicle. There's a black box in the vehicle that was hit, crushed, and moved out of the way. There is information from the bystander video. There's a ton of video. There's probably surveillance video. So it seems at this point that this was an active effort to drive a vehicle directly at a uniformed law enforcement officer while disobeying the lawful orders of other uniformed law enforcement officers. It's got to stop. And these attacks have doubled in the past year.
I want to take us out to the live image that we still have of that scene, Lance, while I pose this next question to you. So the fact that this did involve a federal agent, how does that differ from a case in which maybe a local or state law enforcement officer is involved?
So it's an interesting concept. And, you know, this notion that we don't want ICE here and they're not welcome in the city. Minneapolis is part of the United States. These officers, federal officers, are working in every city of the United States, and nobody complains when they're rescuing children of sex trafficking, but they just don't like the mission. Well, that doesn't mean they're not welcome there. It doesn't mean they don't have jurisdiction. So if they decide to charge this federal officer with state-level crimes, that officer has a right under the Constitution to move that trial to a federal court. I've been involved in 3 of those cases, 1 as a use of force expert and 2 as an attorney. Because he's a federal officer performing federal duties, he has a right, if he's charged in a state court, to have those charges heard in a federal court.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. So talk to me about, even when we look at some of the video that's obviously going to be used as evidence, a lot of it is circulating along social media. We've had President Trump reacting to some of the video he saw, also local officials, lawmakers, and officers there. When we think of an ICE agent, do they have body camera footage that can also be reviewed in this entire case, or are we just relying on witness video?
Some do, some don't. So it depends on the federal agency. It depends on the mission that they're on. But keep in mind that the body camera and the video from the bystanders are never going to tell you the complete story. Body cameras, for example, use a lens that gives a wider angle that allows more video to be captured. But it also is 12 inches to 18 inches below the officer's eyes. So it's not going to show you what the officer saw. In this case, we do have video from the angle on the passenger side of the car that shows the agent being hit by the vehicle. You cannot drive your car into a human being like that. That clearly was an aggravated assault. It's a violation of federal law. It's a violation of state law. And the important thing to remember here is that agent that was hit was moving across the windshield from passenger side to driver side. So there's no dispute that she was aware he was there, and she had control of her vehicle and should not have moved it forward. She also turns the wheels directly into him while he's standing there. This is deliberate.
Lance, before I let you go, just one more question here. When it comes to use of force protocols, what is that for ICE agents, and how does it differ, or does it differ for a local police officer?
It does not differ, and it's interesting when you look at the Fourth Amendment reasonableness standard to the United States Constitution governs all of their use of force. And an officer has the ability and the right to stop a deadly threat. And a person hitting you with a car and driving at you with a car, even at 5, 10, 15 miles an hour, constitutes a deadly threat.
Lance Lorusso, attorney here, defense attorney, specifically has been focused on a lot of these cases involving officers and sometimes federal agents. We do appreciate your time here at Live Now from Fox. Of course, this case just beginning, as you had mentioned in the past, or at the top of this discussion, I should say. It does take time to really gather all those evidence and come to that conclusion. But Lance, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We are going to step away for a quick commercial break, but we continue with more of the developments regarding this entire story. Back out live to the images that we do still have in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is a closer look at the vigil and memorial that is being set up here. As you can see, a lot of those candles still visible at this time. Community members still gathering after that incident happened on Wednesday. We'll be right back.